up there. I've been interested in wildlife since the age of 12, which is more than a couple of decades ago, as you can imagine. And we moved to Barcombe just before the millennium, and since then I've been recording the wildlife around the village and in the parish, and that's what the basis of this talk is about. So where's Barcombe Parish? Well, over bordered on the west by the town Littleworth Road, and on the east by the River Ouse. It's about 18 square kilometres in size, which is about 1% of the total land area of East Sussex. And over on this table here, there's data from the Sussex Biodiversity Record Centre. So this is kind of data from lots and lots of observers, hundreds of observers. But you can see that we have about 1,800 species being recorded in the parish. And the biggest number are higher plants, that's seed-bearing plants and ferns, followed by moths, followed by birds. But over on this side is this actual number of records, and you can see that about 2/3 of the records are birds. So where are these records to be found? Where have they been recorded within Barcombe Parish? Well, you can see that there's a heavy weighting here in the southeast, which is Barcombe Reservoir, and so a lot of these are bird records. There's also quite a lot of records around Post Lane, and that's as a result of the efforts of the late Robin Pepper, who recorded a lot of birds at Scobell's Farm, which is about there. Over on the right, Bluebell Wood. This is Nolan's Wood, which Nick will be talking to you a bit later on about. And then the number of species in each square. So each square is 1 kilometre by 1 kilometre. And you can see that the biggest number of species has been recorded around Nolan's Wood and the secret campsite. There's also a lot of species being recorded down here. Some of that is due to birds, others is due to moth trapping in Church Road by the Dixons, as we'll see a bit later on. And over on the right here is a scarlet tiger moth, which is one of the day-flying moths that we have here in the village. And if you look at the bird records, the majority of bird records by a long margin comes from around Barcombe Reservoir. Barcombe Reservoir sadly is closed to the public, but once a month a small group of us go around with the South East Water ecologist to carry out the wetland bird survey, and that wetland bird survey has been going on since 1966, so there's a continuous record of the birds at Barcombe Reservoir during that time. Now last year I produced something called the Birds of Barcombe Parish, which is here, and it's free to download from the Barcombe Parish Council website. Hopefully it'll soon be on the Green Barcombe website as well. And within that I found that there were 51 species that I thought that have only occurred here once or twice. There are 4 species which haven't been recorded in kind of the recent past, and they're the corncrake, nightjar, redback shrike and woodchat shrike. And there's one species which was present in the parish till about 25 years ago, the willow tit. It's now disappeared from Barcombe and it's gone extinct in Sussex. So just thinking about the common species, there's a lot of species that nearly everyone can identify. I think most people can identify a robin, probably blue tit, wren and so on. And generically geese, ducks, pheasants, herons, buzzards and so on. So there's an awful lot that you can actually, most people can identify to some degree or other. And there are a lot of quite common birds that kind of go under the radar, so to speak, such as the dunnock, the nuthatch, the coulted. So there are quite a few species which are common, but not that obvious. And then some of the less common species, I should say, by the way, that all these pictures were taken in the parish. Things such as the bullfinch, which occurs within the parish. There are some seats here if you want to. But it takes a little bit of finding. Yellowhammer, we still have a population of yellowhammers around the parish. The sparrowhawk, little grebe, coot. These are species that would take a little bit more effort to find, but they're here. And then every so often we get a visit by this little jewel of a bird, the kingfisher. Very fortunately, they seem to be getting commoner and more frequently seen. And then the parish is visited by quite a lot of birds during the year that come from the north, such as the redwing and the fieldfare. These come here for our winter to get away from the Scandinavian winters. And then we've got summer visitors like the blackcap, and I have one singing in my garden this morning, and the whitethroat. These are coming from the Mediterranean and much further south. The whitethroat will be coming from sub-Saharan Africa. But perhaps the most celebrated bird that we get in the parish is the nightingale. And just on this map up here, the green spots show the territories that were noted by about the 5th of May. And last year we had 24 singing birds within the parish, and you can see the importance of the old railway track that runs northwest, southeast from the village. So it is absolutely essential that railway track is never developed. Otherwise we'll lose those species, that species and a lot of others. The parish also gets some real long distance travellers, such as the swift, which sadly no longer nest within the village. Just occasionally we have more positive signs that they're returning. And the swallows. These two swallows were taken at Lowlands Farm. They're youngsters, and they're about to take a journey that's about 6,000 miles down to South Africa. And then they come back in the spring, we hope. And then there are some really scarce birds around the parish, like the marsh tit, which you would take some effort to really find around here. But it does occur. There are one or two pairs. The spotted flycatcher, which is summer visitor, which there's about one or two pairs normally try and breed. In the winter, white-fronted geese occasionally. These come from Russia. And we've had 4 records of wryneck in recent, in the past 30 years. And this is a woodpecker relative. And when I took this picture, it had just taken its tongue in from about here back to there. They've got a really long tongue. So we do get quite a few scarce and rare birds, but perhaps the rarest of the lot occurred in 2021. The Anscombs found it in their garden. It's a white-throated sparrow, and this came from North America. It almost certainly got ship-assisted, so it came across on a cargo ship. Found Barcombe eventually, and eventually the bird watchers found it as well. And after it moved from the Anscombs garden down to the wild about Barcombe area, I estimated we probably had about 500 bird watchers came here. I remember some from North Wales, some from Cheshire, So this was quite an ornithological highlight.
And it was during COVID and they weren't supposed to do it.
Well, if you go back, you can see that it's a very spatially kind of aware twitch. And farmland birds, there's a lot of worry about a loss of farmland birds around the entire country, but if you provide the habitat, they will return. And Nick and James Wallace 2 years ago turned some fields over to birdseed mix. These are linnets, and at the height we had 1,200 linnets and 300 chaffinches, which is exceptional. That is really exceptional in Sussex. So if you provide the habitat, birds will return. It's astonishing, wasn't it, Nick? And then we have quite a lot of mammals that you will recognise: the red fox, the fallow deer, the grey squirrel trying to do a kind of cute appearance, and perhaps less well known will be the roe deer here with 2 kids. We've also got bats around the village. We've actually got a proper bird come into the last year, Lou Alexander managed to obtain a grant for some bat detectors, and a number of us tried them out around the village. And this is what they call a spectrogram of the bat's kind of echolocation noises that it's making. And this was almost certainly a naturalist bat. And then I managed to plot where the bats were actually occurring around the village. This is the centre of Barcombe Cross. But you can see the nocturnal bat occurs quite widely. And this chap, he was flying around Sutton Hall Weir in broad daylight. This is a pipistrelle of one of the 2 or 3 species. Then we've got reptiles and amphibians, a range of those around the village. We've all heard about the toads that the toad patrols are doing at the minute. We also have got both common frog, and this is a marsh frog. If you go out around Barcombe on a warm summer's evening, it's like being in the Mediterranean now, the noise these chaps make. And if you've got a pond, and Pete will be giving a talk next, you almost certainly will be attracting newts. And this is a palmate newt. It's got a little filament on the end of its tail. And also, occasionally you'll bump into grass snakes and adders. Butterflies are really good within the parish, and you can see that the really kind of most records are coming from Nolan's Wood, Nolan's Farm, and also down here near the church. And that's the old railway line which runs up here. And this is one species, the male orange tip, that we'll start to see in the next couple of weeks as they come onto the wing. And this lovely little chap down here on common fleabane, this is the brown argus, which is a nice species that we get in the summer. And Barcombe is really, and particularly Nolan's Wood, is famous for its woodland species. This is a silver wash fritillary, so quite a large, kind of spectacular species, not quite as large as this, that occurs in the woodlands rides. And we're right on the eastern boundary of this chap, which is the brown hair streak, and so we're starting to get more and more records of this rather nice little butterfly of woodlands and woodland rides, and also hedgerows. And this, the small tortoiseshell, is really now quite scarce, was very common at one time. What I liked about this picture is being photobombed by a method. And moths, you can see the efforts of Janet and Clive Dixon down here on their moth trapping, and up at Nolan's and Secret Campsite accounts for the majority of the sightings. And over here you've got Michael Blenko and a team from Sussex Wildlife Trust doing some moth trapping. They're opening the moth traps, and you can notice one or two of the village people around here. The kind of species that we might get in a moth trap include poplar hawk moth, which is quite nice, and then we've got day flying moths such as the light orange underwing, which occurs at Nolan's and is only in the past 5 years being found in 3 spots in Sussex. So it's a real rarity. And then dragonflies and damselflies. Not surprisingly, most of the records follow the River Ouse. And over here we have Andrews Cut, which is a really good site for dragonflies and damselflies. This is a scarce chaser which occurs there. And within the parish we also have this one, which is the brilliant emerald dragonfly. And this one mainly occurs in Sussex, and its only other location in the UK is the north of Scotland. It's a very odd distribution. And then this rather attractive thing is a blue-tailed damselfly. Most species of dragonfly and damselfly are on the increase, these two spectacularly so. This was first recorded in the parish in 2021, and within Sussex it's gone from a single 1 kilometre square to 440 in a decade. So it's just expanding in a dramatic way. And this rather attractive dragonfly is the southern migrant hawker, also known as the blue-eyed hawker, and we've now got records of that, it having only turned up in Sussex in about 2018. We've got a wide range of insects that occur around the parish. This chap is rather spectacularly named Wasted Bee Grabber. The red-headed cardinal, the scorpion fly, the common green grasshopper, I think this is the yellow-legged mining bee, and the noon flies. But basically I could have produced you several of these slides with different insects. Just quickly then moving on to higher plants. We've got a very good range of higher plants, and these include the seed-bearing things such as the majority here, and also the ferns. And Spithurst Churchyard is really good. We've been doing a lot of work there to try and encourage the plants, and this is Goldilocks buttercup, and also Bethany, and particularly the Bethany, it brings in loads of insects into the churchyard. And perhaps the floozies of the plant kingdom, the orchids, we have a number of those, and people are always interested in orchids. This is the pyramidal orchid, not too surprising its name, the bee orchid, the early purple orchid, this is in Nolan's Wood, and again in Spithurst Churchyard, the common twayblade. And then good range of fungi, and in damp late summer, early autumn conditions, we can get quite a flush of toadstools and mushrooms. I think this picture is almost a bit mesmerising. This is a parasol. This is a magpie ink cap. This is a scarlet waxcap, and a scarlet waxcap's a really good indicator of unimproved grassland. And then this, almost the classic of all toadstools, the fly agaric. And then if you walk around woodlands or along woodland rides, and look closely, you'll be amazed at how much stuff is smothered in either lichens, which are a mix of a fungus and an alga, and mosses, and if you go to damp places, liverworts as well. So we've got range of species right across the board. And then, as far as where all these sightings go, they go to the Sussex Biodiversity Record Centre, and they come in from people putting records in from something called iRecord. They come in directly. They come from the Sussex Ornithological Society, Sussex Botanical Recording Society, and all of this then gets fed into a national biodiversity database which informs conservation and it informs planning and so many other things. So if you're interested in sending records in, please kind of do send them in, because they will be a benefit not only to Sussex and Barcombe but also nationally. Thank you very much. I think we've possibly got time for one or two questions. Yeah?
Yes, Simon, have you got any records in the parish of water mammals like otters, mink, water voles?
Water vole, I think, is old records, but no. I've heard of people reckoning that they have seen otters footprints around the village, and there's a fairly good chance they're here, but I've not heard of any definite sightings.
I've definitely